Welcome, friends and family. I'm so excited to be here with you today in our Elevate studio. And I just want to remind you that our Elevate real estate community is a faith-led coaching and mentorship program with an emphasis on leadership. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about that leadership principle. You know, I had a thought earlier. You don't have to be great to serve, but you've got to serve to be great. And that thought is something really started to stir in me about servant leadership and what that looks like. And, you know, when did Elijah begin to care? Like, when did Elijah get a heart to think outside of Elijah and start caring about others? And I was thinking about it. Man, it took me back to a memory. See, for a time in my life, I was a youth pastor. And not just for any children, but for a very special group of children. A group that I could identify with very easily. A group of kids that we would go out into the highways and byways and we would pick them up by van and we would bring them to church. And I connected with these kids. See, like when I first seen them, there was something in their eye and there was something in my eye. We knew we connected. There was an identity. And I think for that, a lot of what that looked like for us was that we probably grew up knowing what it felt like to be unloved, uncared for. So these kids I could relate to and I could connect very quickly. I'll never forget the moment, though. We picked up, there was 3 children that lived in a single wide in a mobile home park real close to the church we attended. They were the last on the group. We already probably had 15 kids in this van. And I'll never forget Molly, Carly, and Jacob. Molly, Carly, and Jacob. They were the last group that I would pick up and before going right into the church. And this day when they got on the bus, they didn't look at me. Like, you know, we would always smile. We'd say, "Hey, how you doing? So good to see you." It was like a family with these children. These precious souls would get on the bus, and I would be so excited to see them, and they always loved me back. And that's one thing I loved about these kids. They didn't judge me. See, prior to getting born again, unfortunately, I'd got in and out of a lot of trouble. And so when I got around adults, I always felt a little judged. But and they probably weren't judging me. That was just probably a bad program running through my mind. But these kids I knew, you know, they just had an unconditional love. But this day, they didn't look at me. They just kind of got on the bus and went right to the back. And I remember thinking to myself, that seems a little off, but who knows? You know, they're living in a home right now in a single wide in a community that had a lot of bad things going on in it. In fact, the house that they lived in, the dad lived there, his new girlfriend lived there, and his ex-wife lived there. So I knew that there could be all kind of bad situations going on. We get off the bus, and I'll never forget, I seen little Carly walking into the church. And on the back of her shirt, it was a purple shirt, there was some blood coming off the back of her shirt. And it just stunned me. Thankfully, Miss Johnson was there. We took a look at it and assessed the situation. And what I seen, it almost made me question if I'd ever even be able to smile again. We pulled up the little girl's shirt. Her brother had taken a knife and cut her in her back right before getting on the church van. And you could see that somebody carelessly took like 3 Band-Aids, really little skinny bandages, and put them up and down and just pushed those kids right on the bus. No wonder they weren't smiling. No wonder they wouldn't look me in the eye. Because the same thing that had happened to them a lot in their life happened to them right there. They weren't being cared for. They weren't being treated and loved. They were being pushed onto a church bus, get out of the house. And they had to do that very quickly, very carelessly. The people that were their parents that should love them and take care of them. So I'll never forget, for me, that moment hurt. It was painful. I remember thinking, gosh, I don't know if I'll ever be able to smile again. But thankfully I was. And something came out of that I had not anticipated. And it was purpose. Like I realized, God, you put me here for something bigger than me. Like I'm not just here to serve Elijah. I'm not just here. It's not all about me. It was, I can help kids in these situations. Even if it's just bringing them to church. Even if it's just giving them a smile when they would get on the bus. See, these were opportunities for me to serve them. And guys, serving doesn't have to be that hard. It isn't that complicated. It can be as simple as that. It can be a smile on your face. It can be a slowing down your pace a little bit to ask somebody how their day is and truly, genuinely listen in a caring way. We have a new team member. He started with us this week. His name is Nathan Green. And one of my pet peeves is if I see something on the ground, I'm generally going to bend over, pick it up, and throw it away. If it's a piece of trash or something that needs to be moved out of the way of people. That's just kind of my nature. And it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people can walk by and not do it. And this is probably something that started at a young age for me with my mom and dad teaching me to do chores and clean up after myself. So it surprises me when I see people not do that. But Mr. Nathan, surely he didn't know I was observing, but I watched. And he seen a piece of paper on the ground, he bent down, picked it up, disposed of it. But he took effort and he took time to do that, and he did it quietly. Nobody cheered for him. He wasn't looking for a pat on the back. He was just being Nathan. And it reminds me, guys, of a Bible verse. This whole subject of servant leadership, you don't have to be great to serve, but you got to serve to be great. It reminds me of the Good Samaritan, right? When this Good Samaritan, obviously he didn't come from the most elite group. He didn't maybe necessarily have the most amount of money. He was probably somebody that even a lot of folks maybe even looked down on. But God says this, guys. He says this so clearly in the Bible. He says that in order to be great, you got to be the chief servant. If you want to be the greatest among you, then Jesus said you have to be the chief servant. That means you get to serve more people. See, with leadership comes more responsibility. It doesn't mean like when you get to the top, now, man, I can get away with everything. I can do whatever I want because I'm at the top of the... No, what it really means is now you have more responsibility. You've got to care more. You're more responsible for more. So when what God said very clearly, guys, was not that you have to be the smartest to be the greatest and to be the servant. He didn't say you have to be the most talented. He didn't say you had to be the best person. But what he did say is you do have to serve. See, there's no getting by that. And that was a really good thing for the man that was beaten, robbed, left to die on the ground. See, two people had already walked by him that day that we were recalled of in the Bible. Could have been others. One was real busy, had a lot on his day. The other one was a little bit too religious and didn't think that he needed to bend down and help somebody out that day. But the Good Samaritan, he couldn't walk by that guy, seeing him like he was. No, he bent down. He helped lift the man up. And then he took him to the closest place where he could get help, took money out of his own pocket, helped pay for this man until he could get better. And guys, that's what true servant leadership is. True servant leadership is helping others be great. You know, Zig Ziglar, he says a quote, he says that we were engineered for greatness. We were endowed with the seeds of greatness. And what Zig is saying is that we were designed for accomplishment. We were endowed with the seeds of greatness. We are engineered for greatness, guys. And what Zig wants us to know, and what I hope you know, is that God has called you for greatness. But greatness doesn't happen when you're only focused on yourself. Greatness starts when you begin to expand your world by thinking about how can I help other people out. So my encouragement to you is not to go out there and think, how can I be the greatest? But my encouragement to you today is, how can you serve and help others become great? I would still be working with those precious children had I not started my own family. And then I realized that, you know, you're going to have a career. You're going to have to pay bills. No one in me, food don't just get put on the table by accident. Like, I had an opportunity to serve now my own son, my own daughter, with an amazing wife. And I want to say this, that because I'm not with those children serving them, now I find different ways to serve. I get to serve in our Elevate real estate community. I get to serve in different functions in different ways. And my goal is still today, I want to be an example to those kids that came up in a hard life and didn't have a lot of opportunities, that, man, you can come from nowhere and still be somebody. But you don't do that by making yourself great. You do that by serving others. And so, folks, that's my encouragement to you. Not just to be great, but go help others be great. Do that today. Thank you.